What's going on, guys? Welcome back into the channel. Today I'm going to be giving you various tips and tricks to help yourself get called up faster in Road to the Show on MLB The Show 21. Now, the first tip that I have for you guys in today's video is going to be related to your position and related to the roster. So if you want to, you can do this method in order to give yourself the best chance at getting called up quickly in Road to the Show, and that is to analyze the roster in comparison to the position that you want to play. And so let's say, for example, that you wanted to be a center fielder in the MLB and you want to get called up quickly. Well, the thing that you can do, you can go to roster control, you can check out the roster that you have, and you can sort by the position that you intend to play. And let's say, like I said, you want to be a center fielder, you can check out which teams have the worst center fielders, and then you can select, whenever it asks you where you want to get drafted, which team to get drafted to. So let's say, for example, like I said, I wanted to be a center fielder. I would maybe pick the Pirates that I've seen so far. Don't have a very good center fielder. They don't have a lot of competition ahead of me. You might be able to pick the Royals, for example. They do have a potential center fielder out there. You might be able to pick, for example, the Houston Astros. You could pick whichever team has the least amount of competition or the least entrenched starter ahead of you in the major leagues. And the team that is the most thin at that position, this is another good one here, the Mets, will be the more likely one to call you up, because the faster you increase your overall, the better you play, the more likely you are to jump ahead of these guys in the minds of Road to the Show and in the minds of the organization. So it wouldn't be too difficult to jump ahead of these guys on the Mets just simply because they're low 70s. It's not too hard to get yourself up into the 70s. You'll probably jump ahead of them pretty quickly in terms of overall, and your play is going to be outstanding. And I've not seen it, basically it's not unheard of to see your guy jump pretty quickly in one season up to the MLB. I've tested it. It's possible, and you can do it as long as there isn't a lot of competition ahead of you. There have been times within the game, within Road to the Show, where I've specifically been told, we have this guy ahead of you and we don't want, essentially he's our future, we're going to probably have to trade you away to a team that can use you. And that was whenever I was a catcher. Now, the other tip here that is in relation to the roster is, if you want to get called up quickly, is to not only analyze and select a team that will call you up that doesn't have competition, but it's to analyze the entire league as a whole and determine which positions are thin. Catcher is a position that is pretty hard to come by within the MLB. So, in order to give yourself the best chance at getting called up quickly to the show, you're going to want to pick a position that is going to get called up quickly, that is in high demand. So catcher, for example, is a position that good catchers are few and far between. So you're more likely to get an MLB starting job quickly because of the fact that there are so few good catchers. Now, within this roster, there are some pretty good catchers, and there are a few teams that need one here. But that's your best bet, is to analyze which positions are needed among the MLB teams, and that's going to help you, basically beat the odds. If you selected, center fielder, for example, there's a ton of good center fielders out there, a ton of center fielders that have speed, everything that you could look for in a center fielder. However, if you picked a catcher, for example, that is a much more in-demand position and much harder to come by. It's more likely that you're going to get traded to a team that needs you, or you're going to be picked to a team that already needs you, and you're going to work your way up pretty quickly to the MLB roster. Now, the next tip here that is incredibly important that I overlooked whenever I first started Road to the Show, because I didn't realize it, was the fact that each of these archetypes has a specific position that they work well for, and the overall changes based on what position you are. So I'm a third baseman in this franchise. My overall is going to be lower if I pick basically the archetype that is of a different position. And so as a third baseman, I probably wouldn't want to pick speedster, because that's more aligned towards a center fielder, or as it says right there below speedster, preferred positions: center field, second base, shortstop, left field, right field. So if you wanted to be a speedster, you would get the highest overall at left field, center field, right field, for example. Whereas I'm a third baseman, so I'm going to get the highest overall out of the one that says it works for a third baseman. So slugger works for third baseman. You guys can see that I get a really good overall out of slick fielding, because third baseman, for example, really heavily favors a defensive player. So your position and the archetype you select is incredibly important. This is one thing that I think gets overlooked a lot, and I was actually just recently having a discussion with a friend about this, and I'm specifically making this video with the intention of helping him out as well, because this is something that I just learned, and it's kind of easy to overlook. The slugger one, for example, gives me a 79 overall as a third baseman with the traits that I have added on to it, but the reason being is that the preferred position for a player that is a slugger would be a first baseman, a catcher rather, or a third baseman. Whereas, like I said, whenever you take a look at some of the other positions, they're not necessarily good for a third baseman. And so while they would give me the same 79 or 80 overall rating at those respective positions, it's going to give me less. If I picked Sparkplug, it's going to give me a 78 instead of a 79. If I pick Speedster, it's going to give me a 76. And the reason for that is because those traits aren't valued as highly at the position that you are selecting. So the speed traits, speed, as you guys see at the bottom left, speed, stealing, bunting, drag bunting, contact, those aren't as important for a third baseman within the game. It doesn't value those the same, but they are more important for a center fielder. So if I tried to be a center fielder and I selected Speedster, I would get the higher overall. If I tried to select Slugger, more than likely I'm going to have a lower overall. So hopefully that helps you guys understand there. And likewise, if you guys go to the additional traits on top, that are basically connected to and added to your overall archetype, these things are going to matter differently depending on your position. They're going to give you boosts that matter more for your position. So let's say I selected fielding traits, for example. Those are going to increase my overall more than anything as a third baseman. Let's say, so contact, for example, that one's going to take me up to an 80 as opposed to a 79. And the reason that I'm talking about this is because your overall is going to get you promoted faster within Road to the Show. The higher overall you are, the more the organization and the game is going to register that, hey, this guy is better than the guy we have at AAA level. This guy's better than the guy that we have at MLB level. Let's call him up and start him instead. If I can get myself to an 80 overall, chances are good that I'm better than the guy at the MLB level and I'm going to get called up, or at least I'm going to be better than the guy at the AAA level and get myself called up faster. So the archetypes and the added traits that you select are really, really crucial. The higher overall you can be, the quicker you're going to get called up to the major league level. Now, the next thing to keep in mind here is that if you are playing as a two-way player, your overall as both a fielder and a pitcher are going to matter to how quickly you get called up in Road to the Show. So if you want to get called up quickly, you want to make sure that you get a higher overall at both your fielding position and your starting pitching position. And so right now it appears like I'm a 79 overall, but if I go to activate my starting pitching loadout, it changes my overall. Now I have 2 diamond traits on here, so it's going to give me a higher overall. But the important thing to remember there is your overall is different for your basically fielding loadout in comparison to your starting pitching loadout. And so those vary from loadout to loadout, and they're going to cause differences within Road to the Show. If you can get them both higher, you're going to get called up quicker. And again, compare those to the competition that you have on your roster. We talked about this in the previous video a lot. Compare it to the guys that you are competing with, and the higher overall you get, if your overall gets higher than the competition in front of you, then you're more likely to get called up quickly to the next level. Now, the next thing to discuss here, and this one is pretty straightforward, is if you have too much competition ahead of you, or let's say the organization specifically tells you that they have a guy at that position that is their future, then you're going to be stuck in the farm system, and you're going to have a hard time getting to the major leagues. You should consider asking for a trade, or even at that point, it might be best off to just restart and try to get drafted to a different team. Now, a good example of this is right here with this simulation road to the show that I'm in right now. I am a third baseman for the Pittsburgh Pirates, and they actually probably have me listed as a starting pitcher right now. But more than likely, I'm not going to get called up to the show if they have this 86 overall A potential player, Chris Bryant, ahead of me. You know, they're not going to see me as a better potential option than him. Now, he is on the injured reserve list, so that could get you called up, but you don't want to bank on an injury to get called up. You want to guarantee yourself a road to the show. And the next thing that I want to talk about is that your position, whatever you have listed as your starting position, is going to crucially determine what's going to happen with your player in terms of how they get called up. So in this road to the show, for example, I chose pitching as my primary role, and so I am listed as a starting pitcher on the roster. Therefore, I have a different competition base than if I was listed as a third baseman. And finally, the most important thing here, and that is probably the easiest way to level up your player outside of everything that I've already talked about, all those different avenues to make your player appear higher overall, is go ahead and spend some time in Diamond Dynasty or whatever other mode playing and earning stubs and earning equipment. You know, you can get equipment through leveling up the programs with your players. You get various different equipment packs, and these equipment packs get better and better as you go along. So right now, with this archetype, I'm only earning silver, but if I was leveling up to gold, I'd get gold equipment and eventually diamond equipment. So leveling up here, you can get diamond equipment. You can get that equipment that matters. You can also use these Diamond Dynasty challenges to level up more quickly. Basically, what it boils down to is your equipment is going to help boost your player. You know, you can get anything from, fielding to contact to power, even pitching attributes to boost your player up and improve your performance. Now, the important thing to remember is that those attributes aren't necessarily going to be listed. So right here it says I have 57 contact. When I go into a game, it's going to say I have 57 contact. However, your equipment is adding on top of that, and it's not going to show. I don't know why they have it this way this year. It's a change from last year, but keep in mind that your equipment is adding a boost. It shows plus 16 above your batting. If I were to go into a game, it's only going to show that I have 57 contact or 58 contact depending on the side that I'm batting, but I am getting plus 16 on top of that. And the way that I can show you that is by taking equipment off, and I'll show you that here in a second. So if I go ahead and back out of this screen, you guys saw I was getting plus 16 contact. If I go ahead and take my bat off, for example, which gives me plus 7 on both sides, you can now see that it's not equipped. I'm going to go ahead and go back into my player ratings, and you'll see that I'm only getting plus 9 on top of 57. So it's still showing 57 contact, but it's only showing a plus 9 bonus on top of that 57. That's crucially important because a lot of people have this idea that equipment is not giving any bonus effect this year, but that is simply false. You are getting huge bonuses from your equipment, and if you're not getting those equipment bonuses, you're missing out on boosting your player up and getting yourself advanced through Road to the Show more quickly. So, if you take a look at my boost, I'm getting huge stat boosts for a whole bunch of different categories, and what remains to be seen is whether or not those stat boosts are factored into whether you get called up or not. I'm pretty certain, because it worked this way in the past and I've gotten called up pretty quickly in all of my Road to the Shows so far this year, I'm pretty certain that those equipment boosts add to your rating behind the scenes, so you're really a higher overall than what it shows as a 79 up here, for example, and that's going to help you get called up faster. So the more you can boost your player in this way, the better, and the more you can boost your player in any way, the faster you're going to get called up to the show. So important. important. So hopefully this video helped you guys out in some way. If this video did help you guys out, make sure you leave a like on the video. Those are my tips for you guys to help advance through Road to the Show more quickly and get up to the major leagues where you actually want to be. So leave a like on the video if you did like it, subscribe to the channel if you're new, comment down below with anything you guys could use help with or what you want to see next, and I'll see you guys in the next video. I hope you guys have a good one.